We'll now recite Surah Yasin. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم 2 فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم. لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون. وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين. وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا ونطعم من لو يشاء الله وطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين. ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون. ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون. قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون. فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون. إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم. وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم. ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون. هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون. اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون. ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون. ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون. وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين. أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وظللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون. واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون. فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم. سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن
بارے دیگر صلوات. سانسوں میں معجزن ہے محبت حسین کی. سانسوں میں معجزن ہے محبت حسین کی. سرمایہ حیات ہے چاہت حسین کی. سانسوں میں معجزن ہے محبت حسین کی. ہر شخص نے یزید کا بیروپ لے لیا. ہر شخص نے یزید کا بیروپ لے لیا. محسوس ہو رہی ہے ضرورت حسین کی. محسوس ہو رہی ہے ضرورت حسین کی. سانسوں میں معجزن ہے محبت حسین کی. تو بھی کسی یزید کی بیعت نہ کر قبول. تو بھی کسی یزید کی بیعت نہ کر قبول. اعلان کر رہی ہے شہادت حسین کی. اعلان کر رہی ہے شہادت حسین کی. سانسوں میں موج زن ہے محبت حسین کی ذہنوں میں گھولتی ہے تلاوت کا معجزہ ذہنوں میں گھولتی ہے تلاوت کا معجزہ نیزے پہ بولتی ہے صداقت حسین کی نیزے پہ بولتی ہے صداقت حسین کی سانسوں میں موج زن ہے محبت حسین کی ناصر میری دعا ہے شیع انبیاء کے ساتھ ناصر میری دعا ہے شیع انبیاء کے ساتھ ہم کو بھی ہو نصیب زیارت حسین کی ہم کو بھی ہو نصیب زیارت حسین کی سانسوں میں موج زن ہے محبت حسین کی صلوات
اور محمد وآل محمد صلوات فاتحہ رن میں آ کر سکینہ پکاری گھر چلو بھائی مہندی لگاؤں بنے خاصم بہن تم پہ واری گھر چلو بھائی مہندی لگاؤں رن میں آ کر سکینہ بھائی کیا جلد گھر سے سدھارے رسم پورے ہوئے نا ہمارے منتظر ہیں باراتی تمہارے منتظر ہیں باراتی تمہارے گھر چلو بھائی مہندی لگاؤں رن میں آ کر سکینہ بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات فاتحہ زخمی جورن میں خاصم گل پیرہن ہوا زخمی جورن میں خاصم گل پیرہن ہوا پیدا شہانہ جوڑے سے رنگے کفن ارے باغ جنا رسول کو بیت الحزن ہوا اور فوج کی میں شاد ہر ایک تیغ زن ہوا اور فوج کی میں شاد ہر ایک تیغ زن ہوا گل تھا کہ رون ڈالا ہے لشکر کے باغ کو آغازیوں بجھا دو حسن کے چراغ آغازیوں بجھا دو حسن کے
چراغ کو
گھبرا گئے یہ سن کے صدا سرور انام عباس نامور سے اس دم کیا کلا لو بھائی جنگ ہو چکی قصہ ہوا تمام ارے آیا سوئے یتیم حسن موت کا پیام ارے آیا سوئے یتیم حسن موت کا پیام ارے ہم شکل مصطفیٰ کو بلا لو پکار کے ارے مانگو دعا سروں سے امام اتار کے ارے مانگو دعا سروں سے امام اتار کے ارے غش میں جھکا فرس پہ جو وہ غیرت خمر مارا کسی نے فرق پہ ایک برز تان کر ارے برچی لگی جو شیش کی ٹکڑے ہوا جگر ارے گرتے تھے اسپ سے کے کمر پر لگا تبر گرتے تھے اسپ سے کے کمر پر لگا تبر ارے تاروخ کی تیغ کھا کے پکارے امام کو ہے فریاد یا حسین بچا لو غلام کو فریاد یا حسین بچا لو غلام کو جھپٹے جو شاہ فوج پر چمکا کہ ذوالفقار بجلی گری یزید کے لشکر پہ ایک بار اس غیظ میں یمی سے جو آئے سوئے ایثار بھاگے پھرا کے گھوڑوں کی باغوں کو سب سوار بھاگے پھرا کے گھوڑوں کی باغوں کو سب ارے بھگدڑ میں خون سے رن کی زمین لال ہو گئی ارے دولہا کی لاش گھوڑوں سے پامال ہو گئی ارے دولہا की लाश घोड़ों से पामाल हो गई, जख्मी जो रन में खासिमे बर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु।
Brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, just as a reminder, our programs will start every night with dinner and then namaz, so 7:45 dinner, namaz, and then the program after that, inshallah. Just a reminder for the program this Friday, after the program ends on Friday night, inshallah, we'll have a Q&A session, a question and answer session with Dr. Liyakat Takim. And the session will start after the program, inshallah, on Friday. So please do try and join in for that on Friday night. On Saturday morning, there is a majlis at the Pomona Cemetery. The programs is the majlis is for both ladies and gents at the Pomona Cemetery at 10:30 in the morning, and everybody's invited to please join there as well. Inshallah, Sunday will be the day of Ashura. We will begin the program in the morning with the A'mal of Ashura at 10:30 in the morning. A more detailed program will come out shortly, but the program will begin with the A'mal at 10:30 in the morning and go all the way to Sham al-Ghariba, inshallah. So, a long day, and inshallah we'll all come prepared for that day. Let's remember all those in our community and our members of our family who are unwell and need help, and those in the local community and all around the world that need help with Amma Yujibu 5 times. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mustarra idha da'aw wa yakshifu as-su'. Amma yujibu al-mustarra idha da'aw wa yakshifu as-su'. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه يكشف السوء. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. One last time as a reminder that we will have a question and answer session with Dr. Liyakat Takim on Friday after the program, and we ask everybody to join in on that as well. Earlier today we recited Surah Yasin. Let's remember all of our marhumin that are no longer with us, as in particular the following marhumin. Marhum Nur Jahan Mazhar, Marhum Sayyid Mazhar Hussain Naqwi, Marhuma Salma Rizvi, Marhum Qazim Rizvi, Marhum Hussein ibn Qasim Ali, Marhuma Ruqayya binti Abdul Karim, Marhum Qasim Ali ibn Muhammad Ali Japanwala, and Marhuma Rubi binti Ghulam Ali Daramsi, as well as the marhumin of all of our families with Suratul Mubarakatil Fatiha. With a loud salawat, let's welcome Dr. Liyakat Takim to the minbar. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين بالقاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى: في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم صلوا على محمد وآله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Over the past few nights, I've been talking about the Quranic idea of diversity, of communication, of connecting with fellow human beings. That the Quran recognizes that all human beings have been created from a singular soul or singular self. Inna khalaqnakum min nafsin wahida. And that human beings are in essence related even before they are created. And that once we are in this world, our main task is to connect and to live up to the reasons to aspire to what we have been created for. And therefore in Surah Al-Hujurat, Surah number 49, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. We have created you from one male and one female so that you may know and understand each other. But there is something else also that the Quran goes even further, which is that human beings have an innate or inbuilt guidance which connects them two ways. One with Allah and secondly with their own fellow human beings. You've heard of so many verses, and sometimes some verses are easy to remember, some are difficult to remember. This one is pretty easy. It's called 30:30. Chapter 30, verse 30. The verse on Fitra. فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا. That set your face towards the upright religion, which is a fitra. In other words, something innate disposition, if you like, a spiritual GPS that Allah has put within us. فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ. There is no change in that fitra, the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created you. What does this fitra tell us? That there is an innate capacity for us to share our moral values because we connect with other human beings based on that level of morality that we all recognize. So many a time we are connected with people because they stand for a particular principle. We may not even know them. We've never seen them, talk to them. But because they stand for certain principles, we also share those principles with them. Nelson Mandela is one of my personal heroes because of what he had to go through for 27 years. At the same time, the Quran goes further and tells us that you will be just to everybody. كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ بِالْقِسْطِ شُهَدَاء لِلَّهِ. That you will bear witness against your own parents. For the sake of Allah, you'll bear witness against your own parents, against your own selves, or against your own relatives. But that sense of justice will never ever be compromised. Even against those whom you hate or have done wrong to you, you will still be just to them. True ibadat, my sisters and brothers, makes us aware of the obligations that we owe to other human beings. Otherwise, what is the purpose of the ibadat? If I can share a personal anecdote with you, some of you who have been to London or were in England in the 1970s will remember that even before we bought that mosque in Hammersmith, there was a small residence that we used to share together and come together and recite a majalis. It was called 95 Chatsworth Road. On one particular occasion, I wasn't there, but somebody who was there told me this, that Ayatollah al-Khuwaid, rahmatullah alayhi, came to England for treatment. And he came to that particular place to lead the salat and to meet the mu'mineen. After Maghrib and before Isha, a phone rang. In those days, they did not used to have the cell phones. The local phone rang. Somebody answered. The Ayatollah asked him, who was it? What does he want at this time? He said, this was a person who needs to go to hospital right now. He's ill. So I told him that after we finish the prayers, I will go there. Ayatollah said, no. You will forsake the Jamaat, you will pray on your own Isha and go to him directly right now. Because that ibadat of humanity is more important than Salatul Jama'ah. Although Salatul Jamaat, as we know, is so important, but yet that goes to show that human dimension, that your ibadat should make a difference to the lives of others. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhi. Many a time, as I've been saying, that sense of shared morality, Amr bil Ma'ruf that I talked about, should help us ignite the light of Allah to those in whose lives the light is there, but it is not shining. That because we have that light of Allah, inshallah we do, that we help those who are weaker than us to ignite their light so that they can see the light of Allah also. In other words, we nurture each other's character and values. I was also talking yesterday about the Islamic presence or our presence here in America and how in many ways we continue to suffer because of the Islamophobia. You've all heard of Islamophobia, I'm sure. Phobia, by the way, means to be scared of, to be anxious about. In other words, people are scared of Islam, non-Muslims, and all the information they get is primarily from the media, as we are aware. It is interesting that one of the things, and I say this not in order to put down anybody else, to look down on Christians or Jews or Buddhists, that's not my style. But we need to equip and empower ourselves so that when people start pointing fingers at us, we should be able to respectfully respond to them too. One of the things that we hear about is that the Muslims are here and they're going to impose Sharia on us. Haven't you heard this? The Sharia is coming and we should be scared of Muslims because they will go around cutting our hands and so on. Ridiculous ideas. But in reality, even in a Muslim country, we're not talking about in the West, even in a Muslim countries, Muslims are not allowed to impose their Sharia on non-Muslims. In other words, if you are living in Mecca or you are living in Jordan or any Muslim country, we Muslims are not allowed to impose our laws on non-Muslims. Therefore, Christians are allowed to worship that they want to do. Jews are allowed to, Zoroastrians and so on, to worship their own Lord, to have their own places of worship, and they can even listen to their music, even drink alcohol, as long as it's not done in public with others. This goes to show that if we cannot impose our Sharia on non-Muslims in our own countries, how can we do it in the other countries of others? Again, this Islamophobia has been continuous, almost non-stop. But many a time, as I said, we need to respond to them with respect, because one of the tragedies of 9/11, if you like, is how the Quran has suffered. Not only have they burnt the Quran, but they point selected verses in the Quran. Say, look, the Quran says, kill them where you find them, fight them, and so on. But they take verses out of context. There was one state, I recall, that they even wanted to remove Quran from the libraries because the Quran has got violence in it. Rabbi, have you heard of this book called the Old Testament? You've heard, you know the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, right? I asked my student that said, yes, we know one is old, the other one is new. Well, there's a slight greater difference than that. The Old Testament is what we call the Hebrew Bible. And in that, there is far more violence than in the Quran. Whereas the Quran tries to curb and reduce violence, the Old Testament actually promotes it. You look at the book of Deuteronomy, for example, one of the 5 main books. One of them is called the book of Deuteronomy, in which, na'udhu billah, that God tells the Israelites that go and kill every living creature in Canaan. In other words, not only human beings, you kill insects, you kill animals, you kill even remove plants. Anything which grows, kill it. This is in the book of Deuteronomy. And then they're telling us that we are terrorists, of the Quran talks of terrorism. If you look at the book of Joshua, in Jericho, where Joshua goes and kills each and every creature. And that is by the command of God, by the way. Now, this is just 1 or 2 examples. I could go even more, but it just goes to show that those who, as I say in English, those who live in glass houses should not throw stones at others. And even in the New Testament, if you look at the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus is supposed to have said that do not think I've come to bring you peace. I've come to bring you the sword. I've come to bring you the sword. Now, of course, Christians will immediately reinterpret this and say, no, he means this, it means that. We all do that in every book. Sure, the Quran has got violence, but violence in a particular context only. That kill them because they are killing you. The Quran even says, goes further, in Surah Anfal, Surah number 8, verse 61, وَإِن جَنَهُ السِّلْمِ فَجْنَا لَهَا, that if they offer you peace, O Muhammad, then you must offer them peace in return. If they offer you peace, you offer them peace. مَنْ قَتَلَ نَفْسٍ بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ أَوْ فَسَادٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَكَأَنَّمَا قَتَلَ النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. Whoever kills one innocent soul, you kill anybody, Muslim otherwise, kill in one innocent soul, you've killed the whole of humanity, the Quran says. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. The one who has saved one soul has saved the whole of humanity. So this goes to show that this idea that Muslims are out there for jihad, etc., is totally unacceptable and wrong. You may have heard of the Pope Urban V or Urban II, and he is the one who actually started the Crusades. You've heard of the Crusades, right? They were actually a series of 8 adventures. It is ironic that it was started by a pope in France, whereby he gathers people in 1095, we're talking about. 1095, he says, go and kill these heathens. Heathens, by the way, means kafir. He was referring to us Muslims as kafir. And the Pope continues that if you are killed in battle, I guarantee you heaven. This is the Pope speaking in 1095. That if you are killed in battle, I guarantee you heaven. Now, that goes to show how this whole jihad or their own conquest of the Holy Land occurred and started, whereby they kill in Jerusalem alone. They kill 40,000 Muslims, and they kill Jews, and they kill fellow Christians from the Eastern Orthodox Church, because the Pope was from the Western Church. Eastern Orthodox Church, Armenian Church, Russian, what we call now, they were all there in Jerusalem, and they were killed also. Now, we could go on and on and on. The purpose of all of this is to show that the Quran says very clearly when it comes to jihad, La ta'tadu, do not transgress. If they offer you peace, you offer them peace in return. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhi. To go along the same theme, there are 2 kinds of Jews, by the way. They're called Ashkenazim and Sephardic Jews. What is the difference between the two? Ashkenazim Jews are the Jews of Europe. Sephardic Jews are the Jews of the Mediterranean. The Ashkenazim Jews lived under Christian rule, whereas the Sephardic Jews lived under Muslim rule. When you compare the experience of these 2 groups, the Ashkenazim and Sephardic, the Sephardic Jews who lived under Muslim rule fared far, far better. In fact, when Muslims went into Spain in the year of the grocery store, you remember 711, when they entered Spain in 711, they saw Christians and Jews there. And as I mentioned previously, they built together with Christians and Jews one of the best civilization that the world has ever seen. Until 1492. 1492 was the year of the Reconquest, when Granada, the last point in Spain, was conquered by the Christians, and then there was an inquest. It's called the Spanish Inquisition by Isabella and Ferdinand. For those who are not aware, you can Google it. What happened was that Jews and Muslims were given a choice. Either you convert, you get out, or you are killed. Of course, most people had to leave. And the Jews had to leave Spain. And where do they go? They go to Muslim lands in the Mediterranean, in Tunisia, in Morocco, in even Jerusalem at that time, which was controlled by the Muslims. But the Muslims welcomed the Jews back. So you find that Jews were settled down in the Mediterranean under Muslim rule. Not only were they protected, but they never ever received the kind of treatment that Europe dealt with the Jews. The European Jews, as we know, later on they had to undergo the Holocaust, pogroms, even in Russia, whereby the Tsars of Russia systematically targeted Jews. But Islam said, no, you are protected because you are people of the book. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhi. But that sense of Islamophobia continues until today. As we are aware, the media lumps all Muslims together as if there was only just one group of Muslims there, and they are all terrorists, and they're all fundamentalists, and on so on. Have you noticed that when the cartoons, when they want to depict Muslims, the Muslim is never seen as a smart person who is a CEO. He is always some kind of old sheikh coming from the Middle East, even today. And a Muslim woman is one who's kind of wearing one of those, what they call it, ninja hijab. You know, the hijab where only the glasses are seen. Those kind of ridiculous images. A Muslim is never smartly dressed or a CEO. On the contrary, they are always Mediterranean or coming from the East. Just goes to show you how much Islamophobia, in different ways, it continues until today. When India built a bomb, what was it called? An Indian bomb. When Pakistan did it, what was it called? Islamic bomb. Did you know that? It was called an Islam. So even bombs have religion now. Even bombs have got religion. Because when India did it, it was never called a Hindu bomb, by the way. Never a Hindu bomb. It was called an Indian bomb. But when Pakistan did it, Islamic bomb, suddenly the bomb became religious. And by the way, this sense of Islamophobia or accusations is nothing new. It started soon after the Prophet's death. Just to give you just one or two examples to prove a point that how we need to be aware of what we are encountering. That soon after the death of the Prophet, during the time of the Umayyad, in fact, there was a person by the name of John of Damascus. John used to live under Damascus under the Umayyad rule. He was a scholar, and he writes very negative things about the Prophet while living in Damascus. That the Prophet was epileptic, he was a deceiver, and so on. We find this, by the way, throughout the centuries. Some of you may have heard of Dante's Inferno. If you look at Dante's Inferno, he places the Prophet and Na'udhu Billah Imam Ali in the lowest level of hell. This is Dante, writing in Florence, in Italy. And if you people have got, I know, the phones with them, but later on, not now, try and Google the word mammetry. M-A-M-M-E-T-R-Y. M-A-M-M-E-T-R-Y. You will see it says the worship of stones and woods. The worship of stones and woods. Do you know where the word mammetry comes from? Muhammad. In other words, they portrayed Muslims in the medieval ages as those who worship stones and woods called Muhammad. Na'udhu billah. And there you can go on and on and on of how, for a very long time, Muslims were under this kind of Islamophobia, and it continues until today. My sisters and brothers, I've always said that you cannot clean a dirty table with a dirty piece of cloth. You'll make it more messy. Instead, do it in a positive way. Talk to them about the beauty in Islam, for example, of what I was discussing, of how women are treated in reality in Islam, of the mystical dimension, something that the West hardly ever hears about, even we Muslims hardly ever talk about, the spirituality of Islam. How Muslims try to create and engender a close relationship with the divine. Do you know the most famous poem in the West we're talking of? The most famous poet, I should say. The poet is Rumi. That's right, a Muslim. But they hardly ever know or associate Rumi with Islam. Whereas in reality, he was a very, very deeply committed Muslim. We find this that we need to go and talk to them about the more positive dimension of Islam. Again, regarding women, they always say that how our women are subjugated, or women walk so many, I don't know how many miles behind their husbands, and so on. It is amazing to find out that the West has, especially in America I'm talking of now, America has never had a female president. Am I right? One tried very hard a few years ago, but she didn't quite make it. Clinton, I'm talking of Hillary. But in Islam, we have had no less than 40 chehel. How many? 40 sultanas, kings of women, female kings of state. The first sultana or head of state in the Muslim world was in 1256. 1256. And where? In India. Sultana Radhiya. And 4 years later, we had another one, this time in Cairo, Shajaratul Dur. And we've had at least 7 female sultanas in the Indonesian archipelago. We've had them in Yemen and so on. That goes to prove that Muslims are not against women. In fact, many Muslims would argue that they fared better under female rule than under male rule. Sallu ala Muhammad. That Shajaratul Dur in Cairo, by the way, she had her name engraved on the coins. In the olden days, I think even now they do it, in some countries anyway, they put the head of the state on the coins. And they would have her name being chanted or spoken or recited in the khutbah of Jummah. So I think this is what we need to explain to them. And above all, for our own community members, those who look upon Islam in a very, very negative way, we need to distinguish between the Quranic Islam and the historical Islam. The Quranic Islam empowers us, wants us to think, wants us to ponder, whereas the historical Islam is very different. For example, we always think of the caliphate, right? Caliphate as if it was somehow very holy or sacred. In fact, I understand that here in California, there's a lot of people here, the Hizb ut-Tahrir, who just love the caliphate, right? Who love the Khalifa. In fact, they now call it California instead of California, right? Because they are full of these khulafa. Caliphate is a historical institution. It's something that was created by the Muslims because they needed it. There's nothing sacred about it. But yet that historical institution has become sacred. So much so that when Ataturk wanted to destroy it in 1924, there was a big hoo-ha, outcry in the Muslim world that how can you destroy it? The Quran talks of the Khilafat for individuals, that we are all Khalifatullah. We are all the representatives of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yet, this is the confusion between the historical Islam and the Quranic Islam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Above all, also, as Muslims living in the West now, apart from just trying to change the way that people perceive Islam, we need to also get rid of this idea of fundamentalism. As you know, whenever they think of Muslim, they always think of Muslim fundamentalists. Where does the term fundamentalist arrive from? It's not an Islamic term at all, by the way. The closest translation of fundamentalism in Arabic is usuli. In other words, those who believe in usul. We all believe in the usul ad-din. Are we all fundamentalists, therefore? In fact, usulis in Arabic is very different from the fundamentalists in the Christian world. In the Christian world, a fundamentalist is one who is narrow-minded, bigoted, anti-reasoning. All he wants to do is kill people and so on. Orthodox. Whereas in Islam, an usuli is the opposite. It means somebody who believes in the power of reasoning, of thinking, of public expression, and so on. What has happened is that the West has created certain terms, and the term fundamentalism, by the way, was created in Niagara Falls in 1895. And they used it against their own people, Christians, because these fundamentalists wanted to put Christianity back into the lives and minds of fellow Christians. There was a lot of threat against Christianity in the 1890s because of Darwinism, because people had started objecting to the Bible itself, doubting the authenticity of the Bible, of the virgin birth, of the doctrine of Trinity. Because of that, they created the term fundamentalism. Unfortunately, the term is now applied to Muslims when it doesn't even suit. There's no proper equivalent in Arabic. And as I said, the term usuli means the opposite of what it means in the West. Our challenge then, living here in the West, is to change the narrative. In today's world, narratives are very important because narrative says something about who we are and what we are up to. What is it that we want to achieve? When we change a narrative, we can change how people see the world. Look at Hazrat Zainab. She changed the narrative quite incredibly. Because when she enters Kufa, when she enters Sham, the narrative of what? These are rebels, and the women of rebels. Hussein was a rebel, and so on. But she changed it so much so that when she left Kufa and when she left Sham, the people started crying for Imam Hussein because they realized that they were not rebels, they were victims. And how does she change that narrative from being rebels to victims? Through her voice, by speeches, by talking. In those days, there was no social media, but it was a very powerful way of changing the narrative. And similarly, today, we as Muslims, especially Shia Muslims, need to change our narrative in the West. Because for a very long time, and until today, somehow the West has made Muslims as one particular category. Haven't you seen in the media, for example, Muslims believe in the triple talaq. Excuse me, I'm a Muslim, I don't believe in the triple talaq. This is a Sunni narrative, not us. Or Muslims believe in predestination, and so on. Muslims recite the Taraweeh. How come when we talk of Christianity, we don't say that all Christians reject divorce? We say only Catholics do that. In other words, when it comes to Christianity, there are nuances, and the media make sure that they reflect those nuances. But when it comes to Muslims, somehow, we're all the same. What this requires is for us, as the followers of Ahlul Bayt, to change the narrative so that we can have our own voice. We can start reflecting our own views, our own beliefs, and our own voices. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhi. One of the things that Ayatollah Sistani, if you ever go and meet him, he will tell you, he's told us so many times, that you living in the West, you have a greater responsibility. Believe me, we Shias living in the West here, we have far more freedom than we have in most Muslim countries. You cannot even talk, even in a country like Malaysia. Malaysia is supposedly a more moderate country. Malaysia is the only country in the world that I know of that has officially declared Shias as kafir. Officially. Even Saudi Arabia has not done that. But that goes to show that we are living here in the West where we enjoy far greater freedom. Freedom of expression, freedom after expression too. Many people have freedom of expression, but not freedom after expression. But here we enjoy that too, and therefore we need to make our voices heard. The Ayatollah says that you should always excel and help each other excel in every field in the West. You should kind of penetrate every field so that the Shia presence, whether it is in engineering, in neuroscience, in psychology, in politics, in journalism, we should have a voice there. Because today the only thing that matters, the narrative can be changed only by us moving from voiceless to having a voice. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhi. Yes, in today's world now, and this has changed, by the way, especially after 9/11, even sometimes the immigration officers, I've seen them when I go there, they ask me, are you Shiite or Sunnite? Okay, it's not exactly how we pronounce it, but I'm Shiite, So they are becoming more aware of our presence, of the fact that there are differences between us. They even know about Karbala now, about Mashhad, and so on. But even in the question of dialogue, in the past, it was always the Sunnis who were representing the Muslims. Now, more and more, if you go to Dearborn, you go even here, I know that Shias are involved in dialogue whereby they talk of Muslim heroes and sheroes too. There are sheroes too, Female sheroes, now the voices of Hussein, of Zainab, of Fatima, of Khadija are heard rather than other voices only. And this is always a positive thing, whereby the only way we can make a difference to where we live is to have our own voices. In reality, to be honest, before 9/11, Americans could not even spell the word Wahhabis, let alone know who the Wahhabis are. It took 9/11 for them to realize that no, the Shias are not the real terrorists, but there are others also, because none of those 19 hijackers, alhamdulillah, were Shias. We became more aware then, and we started voicing our opinions. And this is the way, by the way, for us to continue. Now I want to talk more about this, but my time is running short. What I would like to say also, and we can continue this discussion tomorrow inshallah, that the dialogue is not only between Muslims and non-Muslims. The discourse has to be within the Muslim community itself. Sometimes I find that we talk more with non-Muslims than we talk with fellow Muslims. There is more interfaith dialogue than intra-faith dialogue. There's a lot of Sunnis, very well-meaning, very good, very nice, but who have these wrong images of Islam, specifically about Shia Islam. That they think that Shias have a different Quran, that in reality, Jibreel made a mistake. Did you know about this? There was a group very long time ago, the Ghurabiya. The Ghurabiya were claimed to be Shias, but Ghurabiya means crows. Ghurab is crows in a crow, in Arabic. And they used to believe that Jibreel made a mistake. The wahi was supposed to go to Imam Ali. Instead, he delivered it to the Prophet. The Prophet was 40 years old. Imam Ali was 10 years old. If Jibreel cannot know the difference between a 40-year-old and a 10-year-old, then we are in big trouble. Then we have to start doubting the whole of the Quran, na'udhu billah, if that was the case. Of course, we do not believe that. But we need to also be able to communicate with fellow Muslims and explain. Many of them, as I said, do not know. They are not aware of the true Shia belief. I teach courses, for example, on an intro to Islam. And when I talk to my students, the majority of whom are Sunnis, by the way, they have never heard of Saqifa. They do not know what is Fadak. They have never heard of Ghadir. They have never heard of the incident of the pen and paper. Nothing. They have not been told about it. And I'm not saying that we go around confronting them. We need to educate them, educate fellow Muslims, and that a lot of these misconceptions they have about Shia Islam in particular are totally incorrect. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali. It is the night of the 7th of Muharram. On the 7th day of Muharram, as we are aware, that the orders came from Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad that remove the tents of Hussein and the companions of Hussein from the river Shati al-Furat. And this is a key point, make sure, he's telling Umar ibn Sa'd in a letter, make sure that Hussein and his companions do not get any water, just like Uthman did not get water. See how they traced it to Uthman, even though Imam Hussein had nothing to do with Uthman. But this was not a battle against Hussein only, it was against all the Shias. That Hussein and his companions should not get any water, just like Uthman was denied water and food. Azadar and Hussein, this is where the tribulations, which are already there, increased tremendously on Imam Hussein and his followers. There are so many heroes, as I've been saying, about in Karbala that we hardly ever hear about. One of these was a person by the name of Suwaid bin Amr. Suwaid bin Amr comes from Kufa, as a lot of these companions of Imam Hussein did come from Kufa. He was a person, a very pious man, in deep prayers. On the day of Ashur, incredibly, an old man, he goes and fights for Imam Hussein. He was the only person shaheed who actually became shaheed after Imam Hussein on the day of Ashur. After Imam Hussein. He fell on the ground while fighting for Imam Hussein before Imam Hussein passed away. Not only that, they thought that they killed him, but he was only wounded. Suwaid was wounded very deeply. But then later on, he came to his consciousness, he was still alive, and he heard that Hussein has been killed. The army was celebrating because Imam Hussein had been killed. You know what does Suwaid do? He gets up, even though he could barely get up, he had a small dagger with him. And he starts fighting with his enemies until he was killed after the battle had ended with Imam Hussein's martyrdom. And we have so many other heroes. One of them was John. John was a black slave. He was a slave of Abu Dhar. Even though Abu Dhar had passed away and he was free, but John wanted to be part of the Ahlul Bayt. And therefore he stuck. He was free to leave. But slavery in Islam was very different from slavery in the West, whereby slaves were almost treated like members of the family. So although John And by the way, John did not even convert. From what we know, he continued to remain a Christian, Abyssinian. But he wanted to be part of the Ahlul Bayt. On the day of Ashur, he comes to Imam Hussein. Says, Yabna Rasulullah, I want to give my life for you. Imam Hussein says, John, you served this family for so long. You don't have to. You are excused. You may leave. John says, Mawla, how can I leave you? I've been with you almost my entire life. I'm not going to leave you at all. John was one of those who came and gave his life as he fell on the ground. Imam Hussein put his head on the cheek of John. Says, oh John, I give you the glad tidings of Jannah. Azadarana Hussein, one by one, the companions gave their lives. But tonight is a very special night of a young boy, Qasim, the son of Imam Hassan. Qasim was only 3 years old when Imam Hassan passed away. So he was 13 years old, around 13 years old in Karbala. He lived with Imam Hussein for 10 years after his father passed away. The Imam treated him like his own son. Qasim lived and was very close to Imam Hussein. And therefore, on the eve of Ashur, when the Imam tells his companion that leave me, they only want me, Qasim, a young boy, comes to Imam Hussein and says, oh my uncle, will I die tomorrow? Will you give me opportunity? Imam wants to test him. How does he feel about death? كيف الموت عندك يا قاسم? He says, أحلى من العسل. To die for you, it is sweeter than honey. I will go and die for you. But how can Imam Hussein allow Qasim, the one who was the nishani, who was the mark of his own brother? Qasim comes on the day of Ashur again and again. He kisses the hand of his uncle. Says, oh my uncle, please let me go. Everybody else is going. Qasim, how can you go? You are the nishani of my brother. It was as if Hussein and Qasim were so close that they were like father and son. Finally, Qasim, according to the riwayat, goes to his mother, Farwa. Oh, my mother, my uncle will not let me go. Farwa remembered that there was a ta'weez that her husband had left for her. Imam Hassan had left for her. And she opened the ta'weez. In that ta'weez, one of the notes that was there was that on the day of Ashur, when my brother will be all alone, oh Qasim, show him this letter. I want you to sacrifice yourself on my behalf. Qasim comes to his uncle, says, Ya Amma, this is from my father, from your brother. Imam Hussein reads the handwriting of his brother. He cries a lot. He embraces Qasim, says, oh beta Qasim, I cannot stop you anymore. This is the wish of my brother. But as Qasim is going towards the horse, Imam Hussein says, wait, I will come with you. He mounts Qasim on the horse. And then he says, Ya Qasim Khuda Hafiz. Qasim is so short that even his feet cannot reach the saddle. He was a 13-year-old boy. Qasim goes to the battlefield. He fights bravely. The enemies are wondering, what is this 13-year-old doing here? But Qasim says in his rights, I am the son of Hassan. I am the grandson of the Prophet. If you want to come and fight with me. A time comes where Qasim falls on the ground. He calls out to his uncle, Ya Amma Adrikni. Oh my uncle, come and help me. At that time, for the first time on the day of Ashur, Hussein is so enraged that he goes to the army and he fights against the army. The army cannot deal with Hussein. As they retreat, according to the riwayat, they trample over the body of Qasim. Hussein now is alone on the battlefield with his nephew Qasim. He says, oh Qasim, it grieved me so much that you called out to me. I was not able to help you. Qasim passes away in front of his uncle Azadar and Hussein. When Qasim went to the battlefield, he was so short that his feet could not even touch the saddle. When Imam Hussein brings the body of Qasim back, his feet are now dragging along the ground. Qasim's body has been trampled by this. Matam Hussein.
مادر قاسم یا لاش پہ رو کر کہاں آ گئی تم کو قضا لاتے لاشا حسین سین کا کیوں کا بیان سال تھا وہ تیرواں ہائے پرارمان چلا لاتے لاشا حسین باپ کا نور نظر اماں کا لخت جگر خلد پسند آ گیا لاتے لاشا حسین اماں سے رخصت طلب کیوں نہیں ہوتے ہو کیا ہوا تم کو بھلا لاتے لاشا حسین لاش قاسم پہ جا پیٹ کے سر یوں کہاں کیا ہوئی ہم سے خطا لاتے لاشا حسین قاسم نوشاد کا لیتے ہیں شاہ حسین قاسم نوشاد کا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین پیٹو سر لے ازا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین قاسم نوشاد کا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین قاسم نوشاد کا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین پیٹو سر لے ازا مادر قاسم نے لاش پہ رو کر کہا آ گئی تم کو قضا لاتے ہیں لاش حسین قاسم نوشاد لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین قاسم نوشاد کا لاتے ہیں لاشا پیٹو سرے لے ازال سین کا کیوں کیا بلا سال تھا وہ 13واں ہے پر ارمان چلا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین قاسم نوشاد کا قاسم نوشاد کا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین پیٹو سرے لے از لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
ہائے ہائے قاسم ہے قاسم 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 کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم کبھی صحرا دیکھ کے روتی تھی کبھی گش کھا کے گر جاتی تھی کبھی صحرا دیکھ کے روتی تھی کبھی گش کھا کے گر جاتی تھی پامال ہوا تھا بھائی جہاں پامال ہوا تھا بھائی جہاں اس خون پہ گر کر ہے قاسم 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 کس شان سے تم دولہا تھے بنے کس شان سے تھی بارات چلی کس شان سے تم دولہا تھے بنے کس شان سے تھی بارات چلی بیٹھی رہی دلہن حجرے میں بیٹھی رہی دلہن حجرے میں آئے نہ پلٹ کر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم فروان کہا بیٹا قاسم کہہ دینا دادی زہرا سے فروان کہا بیٹا قاسم کہہ دینا دادی زہرا سے غربت کی کمائی ٹکڑوں میں غربت کی کمائی ٹکڑوں میں بھیجی ہے سجا کر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہر 7 محرم کو مہندی تیری یاد میں قاسم اٹھتی ہے ہر 7 محرم کو مہندی تیری یاد میں قاسم اٹھتی ہے دولہا دولہا قاسم دولہا 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 قاسم دولہا ہوتا ہے لبوں پر، ہے قاسم، 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 ہے قاسم. کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم، کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم، ہے قاسم، ہے قاسم، ہے قاسم، ہے قاسم، ہے قاسم، ہے قاسم. یا حسین، یا حسین، یا حسین، یا حسین، مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین، مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین، یا حسین، یا حسین. رو کر کہے قاسم کی ماں، رو کر کہے قاسم کی ماں، مارا گیا قاسم جوان، مارا گیا قاسم جوان. اے لال میں ڈھونڈوں کہاں، اے لال میں ڈھونڈوں کہاں، مہندی تیری صحرا تیرا، مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین، مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین، یا حسین. قاسم جوان مارا گیا، قاسم جوان مارا گیا، پامال بھی لاشا ہوا، پامال بھی لاشا ہوا. شہ نے کیے ٹکڑے جمع، شہ نے کیے ٹکڑے جمع، روتی رہی قاسم کی ماں، مولا حق امام یا حسن یا مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین، یا حسین، یا حسین. ابن حسن سا لاڈلا، ابن حسن سا لاڈلا، گھوڑے سے جو روندا گیا، گھوڑے سے جو روندا گیا، افلاک پہ کوہرام تھا، افلاک پہ کوہرام تھا، رونے لگا تھا آسمان، مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین، مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین، 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 حسین،
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. السلام علیکہ یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیکہ یا حبیب اللہ، السلام علیکہ یا امیر المؤمنین، السلام علیکہ یا فاطمۃ الزہراء، السلام علیکہ یا حسن المجتبی، السلام علیکہ یا ابا عبداللہ، السلام علیکہ یا حسین والا علی ابن الحسین والا اولاد الحسین والا اصحاب الحسین، السلام علیکہ تسعۃ المعصومین من ذریتک الحسین، علی ابن الحسین و محمد ابن علی و جعفر ابن محمد و موسیٰ ابن جعفر و علی ابن موسیٰ و محمد ابن علی و علی ابن محمد و الحسن ابن علی، السلام عليك يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن يا صاحب الأسر والزمان. السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله لك ما وعدك من الناس وظهور الأمر ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك حجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. محمد